I know God got me anywhere on the planet. Menace, loose in the spot that I landed. They got no cameras, it goes down in the landing. And I got bandits. Yo, I got bandits.
Welcome to APT Songs Interviews. My guest today is no stranger to the show. Now, a couple of years ago, former Bad Boy recording artist G.Dep was released from prison after serving 13 years. Not long before his release, though, he recorded an album over the phone from jail called Influential, and I loved it. That project is actually what led us to do our first interview. Since then, he's continued to put out new music, and this past February, he released his most personal project to date. Off the Count, it's an album that plays almost like a diary, breaking down the day-to-day realities of prison life, the emotions, the experiences, all told through the kind of storytelling that G.Dep's been known for over 2 decades now. So, of course, I heard the album, I had to reach back out and talk to him again. In this conversation, we catch up on where he's been, what's led to the creation of On The Count, and what he's got coming next, which I'm sure will be a surprise for many of you. Here is my interview with G.Dep. G.Dep, how you doing today?
Can't complain, man. Praise the creator. Great to be here, man, you know?
Yeah, peace and blessings, man. This is great. I was so happy to have you on a couple of years ago when you first got out and putting out your first project. You recently released a new project called Off The Count, and I've listened to it tons of times. The journey of that album is absolutely incredible, and I definitely want to dive into that. But first, I actually want to get into, since the last time we talked, you had recently gotten out of prison and you released Influential, which again, still great, stellar album. Love that. Since that time though, you done worked with a bunch of other people, put out a bunch of singles. So when you first got out and you got into a real studio again though, what was it like recording those first few tracks? Like obviously with Influential, you recorded an album in prison on the phone, and then you get out like 2 weeks later and all of a sudden it's like you can go back to recording. So what have you found that experience to be like?
It was definitely a dream come true kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? Because I came home and it was like I was kind of like used to, you know, recording at that point. I was kind of in record mode. You know, I went from the phone, you know, and then to hear like, you know, the real technology and how you sound on the mic, you know, that was a kind of a shock, you know what I mean? To me, it was a good shock though. It was like, okay, no more transistor sounds and all of this, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. So it was like, you know, it was definitely, I welcomed it. That was kind of my introduction to recording again. And, you know, I've been off to the races ever since, man.
I also imagine like the landscapes changed because like when you were, you know, back in the day with Bad Boy, obviously you were recording in like these multi-million-dollar studios with all this stuff around. And now it's kind of like so much of technology has changed where you could literally just like get a laptop and a mic. Like you could record most of this stuff at home now. So I don't know if you still do the same in terms of like going to a big studio. Do you go to people's houses and apartments and record? Like what's that look like?
I mean, when I first came home, you know, I was still, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, you know, used to what I was used to, you know, just, you know, going to studios. And then, you know, I figured out, like you said, all you need is like a good laptop, a mic, you know, and things like that. And then I started learning how to record. That's been a big process for me too, just learning everything, you know, how to record, how to get a good sound. And, you know, it's really no different, you know, for the most part, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when you go to those studios, it's a lot of other variables that make stuff sound better. But I'm learning that you can, you know, at least lay down a good blueprint, a good foundation, and then, you know, send stuff, you know, to where it can sound good. You know what I mean? Loving it.
It's easier now because like the computers and stuff, you can like send files, whereas like early 2000, you could not do that.
Right. I remember back then, you know, you had to like send files, but they were going through the mail. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, so yeah, so I dig it, man. It's that, you know, like I remember sometime delivery people would come when I used to be down at, you know, studios and all of that. Delivery people would come with music and you know, and reels and DAT tapes. So now, like you said, you know, you can send it through the mail. So, I mean, you know, through the computer. So it's like, you know what I mean? No holds barred.
You're obviously an independent artist now. How has that process been different from being on like a label type of situation?
I mean, you know, you got to come out your pocket, man. You know what I'm saying? More than not. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's one of the main things I think with a label. I mean, being an independent artist, you know what I mean? You gotta, you know, of course you have to, you know, bankroll yourself. I mean, it's also hand to hand. Like you just have to do everything. You have to work, you know, for your, you know, towards your goal for your label. That's the main thing. Like, you know what I mean? You have to do everything. You gotta write your lyrics. Then you have to also, make sure we were talking about this before. Make sure everything is copywritten. Make sure all your ISRCs are together. Register them on various different platforms. Register your stuff on maybe copyright. You know what I mean? On ASCAP. You know what I'm saying? Put them up put all your music up on the DSP, pay your taxes, you know what I'm saying? Like so you basically you doing everything. This beautiful thing, I'm not complaining because you learn the game, you learn the machine that you involved in.
Do you have like a team that's helping you out, or like did you assemble people together to kind of help you out with figuring out some of these things or doing some of those processes for you?
Yeah, of course. Like, like I can't, my wife is over there like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, hello. You know what I'm saying? Like, we tag team on a lot of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? I got my immediate, people that I deal with. Shout to Illa Coin and, you know what I'm saying? Mel Love, you know what I'm saying? John Moskowitz, you know what I mean? We do what we do together. It's a good dynamic. We got Phil Kaiser, you know what I'm saying? We come together. We form Voltron when's needed.
I imagine also being an independent artist that a lot of the promo you have to do also. There wasn't really like as big of a social media explosion as there has been since you've gotten out. So like, what has it been like adjusting to like the social media game for you in terms of your promotion and putting yourself out there?
I knew how to, promote already, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I kind of was kind of aware of that kind of stuff. But now it's just on a bigger scale. It's more methodic. You know what I mean? You come out, you know what I'm saying? You drop something, you make sure you get it on all the platforms, you know what I mean? It's different mediums to, promote, playlists and things like that. So, you just gotta, be educated. The independent market is a beautiful thing. You definitely have to know the rules though. It was an independent artist that he sold a lot of records. He sold like 30,000 units, you know what I mean, on his own independently. Wow. He wanted to chart on Billboard. So he was like, he called Billboard and was like, yo, why wouldn't y'all allow me to chart? I sold 30,000 units. And so when he called them, they were like, because of the fact that you promoted, you live streamed, you let people know you had an album coming, that you incentivized your audience. And because of that, you can't be charted. I didn't understand that. At first I was like, it was a little bit like disheartening. Like, I'm like, damn. So you mean to tell me, like, you just, like, if you sell 100,000 records and you do your thing, it's up to them to really feel like, what. And I still don't know what the criteria is.
Some people that like independent artists, they're like, hey, if I'm just going to go on tour and sell my little stuff. And if I don't chart, I know I got money. And other ones are like, no, like Billboard's that charting is going to allow me to get other places because people know that I'm serious. So it's kind of like, yeah. How do you play that balance and how you do it? Because I can see from Billboard, it's like, well, you could just scan 1,000 units on your own scan card and then say I got 100,000 and you really didn't sell it, So it's like, how do you monitor that? But I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. So I want to look into like, what his issue was, like what were his like what were all his points, like that he went into them with, like, you know what I'm saying? Did you not have a parental advisory sticker on your joint or something? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what was it that they said that you weren't fit for this criteria? You didn't fit the criteria.
So obviously you've released, you released Off the Count, but you've actually released quite a few records prior to that, which I kind of just want to touch on briefly. Like it was interesting. The first album that you released when you got out after Influential, like it was like less than a year later that you released Lessons Never Losses, which I was like, wow, you've already got an album coming out. You've only been out like 11 months and you already got something. What motivated you to record so much music so quickly and then have a whole bulk of something to record and put out like after you got home?
I mean, I don't know. I was excited. You know what I'm saying? I was excited about, music and how it sounded. And, I was just excited to get into, all of those years I was, just looking forward to recording again, you know what I mean? And just doing music, writing music. And I'm like, wow, this would be dope to, you know what I mean? To say, and, stuff like that. So when I came home, it was like, wow, I had the chance to, you know what I mean? People were still, like, yo, I got this beat, or, let's put some music together. So I had these opportunities. And I just took them, you know what I mean? And then, and then here we were, like, there we were, like, my man, shout out to Cover in Umbrella Studios. He was the first one to, to like, yo, let's put an album together. So we started working. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to him, Spazzo, you know what I'm saying? Ski Beach, you know what I'm saying? We put that Lessons Never Losses. And everybody else that, that participated in the Lessons Never Losses.
That album to me was like just so joyful, and it just sounded like you were just like fresh back on the mic. Did you feel like you had anything personal to prove when you made that album?
From an MC standpoint, I definitely felt like I had to, put my best foot forward. You know what I mean? After all of those years, I'm a hip hop, fan, as well. And I want to hear what I want to hear. If you're going to get on the mic, make sure it's up to par. It sounds like, something that you would like yourself. So that was my challenge to myself.
The whole album's great. I loved particularly Hold Your Horses. I thought your flow in that was just like absolutely dynamic.
Anything you shot us, I just got it on file. Try to go the distance, you gon' walk a long mile. All of that was then, and this is about now. So hold your horses, you should calm down.
And then Scam, Sex, Cars, and Money.
Get your card number, leaving out the country. Sex, cars, and money. Sex, cars, and money. You can pull one over on me.
Just a lot of joyous moments. I really, I think I did a review for that, but I really enjoyed that album.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man. Just learning all of this stuff and, being able to do it.
And then you also released an album called Stay Ready with Shizzy Bando. Now, what made you want to work with him in particular on that album?
He is a young, hungry, very talented, artist. As an older person, like I like the new music that's coming out. It's time to, it was time to get with that younger vibe. Like, you know what I'm saying? It needed to be embraced by the older generation, you know what I'm saying? And vice versa, you know what I'm saying? I just was doing my part.
Of the albums you put out thus far, like the beats on there definitely sounded a bit different than what I was used to hearing you rap on, but it still sounded great. Like he had a lot of like kind of like an old school style mixed with a little bit of new school stuff. But it was honestly still it's always interesting to see like a producer do a whole album and how cohesive it sounds when you're messing with just one person versus like a variety of people.
I be out in LI hitting Sotheby's. When they gave me one, I said another please. Helly Hansen, bitch me on the dungaree. Talking nose, well I got a bunch of these. What I'm made for.
I was very, very, grateful that I was able to put that project out because, we can do, what we know how to do, you know what I mean? So, but sometimes when you gotta, step outside your comfort zone, that's when, you could thrive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you make some out of this world, you know what I'm saying, stuff.
Watching your stories on Instagram, you still like perform regularly. And obviously a lot of the stuff that you're known for, whether it's Let's Get It or Special Delivery, like you're performing a lot of that stuff to audiences, some of whom like weren't born when those songs came out. And they're still like rocking hard to them. What's it been like performing those songs in front of the newer class of people and then like seeing their reaction to it?
That has to be one of the things that I do this for. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know, and I probably could speak for a couple of artists or some people. Like, that's what you want to see. It's, the younger generation, embracing your stuff, man. Because you see, that's just the how people are thinking these days. These dudes is old dudes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You hear that, and just knowing that your music can stand the test of time. That's how you can kind of gauge whether or not your music is timeless or good or not.
Well, it's nice too with TikTok and things where it's like now younger generations, like I had a conversation with somebody that I really thought they wouldn't know, like, the music I listened to in college and whatnot. And they're like, no, we have like Apple and Spotify, so we hear everything. Whereas before we had to go collect that stuff on like records and CDs. So they're more caught up with like the older stuff than we would have been at their age at a previous time, which I find fascinating. So they're very caught up with like the stuff that you put out and other people of that era,
Yeah, it is surprising. You like, it's surprising with the young generation knows, like their catalog. You know what I'm saying? Is like what is like it's real extensive. You be like, yo, wow, how you even know about that? Like, you know what I'm saying? I forgot the name of that. Like, how you know that?
All right, so I want to get into talking about the Off the Count album. When you first got out of prison, my thought was that you would go straight into recording an album about your experience in prison. It's been 2 years now. What made you finally decide to like sit down and actually dedicate an entire album to that experience?
Well, actually though, that was the first album I did. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Okay.
I recorded that as soon as I came home. As soon as I came home, we started putting that together. That was like my project. Like I was like, okay, this is what I want to record. You know what I mean? So I started, I shout out to my bro Prime. I met through my other man Mo Manson. You know what I'm saying? Up we got a studio up in the Heights. I started going there. And then I said, yo, look, I like his sound. I liked how, his whole setup. I said, look, I want to record this album here. So I wound up, I just started going to him one by one, coming to him, yo, let's do this one. I got another one. So I had the album written already. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So when I came home, that was like, that was what I wanted to record. You know what I'm saying? So
so you wrote that in prison, like you were taking notes and writing that stuff, like just to be ready.
In real time. Yeah. It was one song that I didn't have done, and that was the last day in. I didn't write that. I wrote that when I came home because I talked about how my last day was in prison. I seen everybody had something called First Day Out. So I was like, let me make something called Last Day In. And I talked about, what it was like leaving that last day and things of that nature. Shout out to Bunky, man. A kid in there named Bunky. He gave me that idea. He was like, yo, everybody talk about the Last Day Out stuff, man. You should write something about last day in. I was like, hell yeah, that's a great idea. And I definitely did it.
Some write go home letters. I gave him a dope sweater. Everything must go if I didn't know you no matter. Any differences y'all had, that won't matter. We that when I got that parole letter.
And then, the other song is Backwards.
You bug and see what was forsaken is what the Lord gave us. Mistakes, we all made them. The media storm came and just take my quarter Raymond and give it to Scorsese. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. Y'all crazy. Word, it gotta be.
I wrote that. Obviously, when I came home, it was kind of like it was something that I was going, just a thought process I went through, like, during the Puffy trial, and like when he got when he got his sentence and all of that. And, it was just, in a mixture of, what I was going through as far as like how, how things was going and things like that. So that's really where that song came from. You know what I'm saying?
Does It's Backwards have any particular meaning behind it in terms of the actual title of it?
Yeah. I mean, you know how people say, yo, free you until it's backwards. You ever heard that saying? You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so yeah. Like people used to say that all the time when I was locked up, that they would, write me or whatever and would say, yo, free you until it's backwards. So until it's you free, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was why I wanted to name it It's Backwards, because I was free. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
I was wondering because it's definitely such a different song from the rest of the songs on the album, where it's like the whole other songs on the album is about prison time up until the last day, and then it's just like it seems like it's kind of like the afterthought of all that stuff. So I was like, right. The song's banging, but I'm just like, but like this doesn't quite match with the rest of the album. But he put it on here for a reason.
Yeah, that was it. It was like, after you hear the album, then it's like this last song that's like kind of, we out here. Yeah, no, we out here. It's not, it's no need to act like we not. So that's what that was about.
That's awesome. Well, I was saying it's also funny because like on the first song, you talk about like you're going into prison and how people need to be thankful that you're in there, because if you were out here, you'd be doing like MC stuff. So it seems like the last song is like, hey, I'm back out. This is what's going down. Like,
right, hell yeah. I didn't really get it that far. I didn't look that far ahead, man. That's a fact.
When you were thinking about, I didn't know you recorded it already. So then, what made you delay putting that particular album out?
You have something and you so, you feel so strongly about it that you just want to make sure it's right. Yeah. So that was kind of one of those things too. Like, you know what I mean? I just took my time, and in that process, it was like, yo, we need to put out music. Like, what we doing? You know what I mean? So it was like, okay, yo, let's record this, let's record that. You know what I mean? So all of those things were, not to say sidebar, but they were just, other things that I was dealing with, and then all of that stuff just turned into projects. You know what I'm saying? And as well with the Stay Ready. You know what I'm saying? That's my bro's son, actually, Shizzy Bando. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, yo, my son is nasty. Like, you know, he was signed to a label at a certain time, at a certain point, you know. So he was like, yo, you know, you need to hear his stuff. Like, he really, you know, out there. I was like, word. So I listened to it, and he had some heat. I was like, wow. I was like, yo, bro. So we wound up working together, and that's how that album came about. You know, I just did one song with him, and then he was like, yo, why don't you come up to record another one? And then he was like, yo, let's just do an album. And we just did that, you know what I mean? So and then
Nice.
so that was how, yeah. So that was how those projects was like done, and we was like, yo, let's just put them out. But my baby, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The you know the what I thought needed to come out, that was this. I needed, you know, I thought, you know, because you know it's obvious, you know, let's call it what it is. People want to, you know, when they speak to me, they want to know what happened, or what when, you know, how I felt about certain things, you know, as far as my case. I can't ignore that, you know what I mean? I can't ignore the fact that I was locked up for 13 years, and you know what I'm saying, and just go about my day like nothing. You know, I respect the, you know, the inquisitiveness of people. So I was like, all right, look, this needs to be done. You know what I'm saying? So that was, you know, why I kind of took my time with it.
Well, plus, I imagine it builds anticipation too. Like, you know, people were wanting to ask those questions, and maybe they thought like, oh, maybe he doesn't want to talk about it yet, or maybe there's things that are too sensitive. So it's kind of like building it up to where like, all right, this is in a musical format, how I want to talk about this. I imagine it builds up a lot more want and desire for that. And I found it interesting as a person that, like, for one, as a theater person, because I went to school for theater, like, see, I don't hear a lot of albums that like are narratively told from like, here's the start of it to like, here's the finish of it. And it just seemed like as I was listening to the album, I'm literally going through the journey of like what the years were like in prison at the time. And to your credit, you know, a lot of rappers, they'll put out music where it's like, yeah, I was in jail, but oftentimes it's in a way that really glorifies prison. Like, oh, I was there, I can do time like it's nothing, I can do whatever. Your album really focuses more on like the psychological toll and the day-to-day realities of that. Why was it important for you to portray prison like that versus the other way?
It would have been a disservice to treat it like, you know, it was just, yo, you know, and make it seem like it was, you know, something that it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was locked up with real people that had real issues. I had real issues, like real, going through real life stuff. And so for me to come home and act like it was some sweet, like we was in there, you know, going through it sometimes. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was in there during, you know, during the COVID era. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in there during, you know, all stuff that was, you know, George Floyd, and like we behind the wall at the time. Like, you know what I mean? You know, then you just go through every, you know, all your everyday things, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, so for me to come home and act like it was just like, yo, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yo, we was eating, yo, we had the whole jail. It was, it was like, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't reality. You know, anybody that was with me knew, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we was in the trenches, you know what I'm saying? We were, you know, the good and the bad, you know what I mean? So that was, you know, that was just, you know, I thought that it had to, you know, I wanted it to be a true to life, you know what I'm saying, album, you know what I mean? For my, you know, my truth.
And I noticed too on a lot of the songs that like, several of them talk about you basically trying to like stay to yourself, trying to avoid trouble, really being observant of stuff going on. Did you find that there were a lot of conflicts that happened, and were you trying to just mostly stay out of those situations and get home?
That was how my whole mindset was. It's like, you know, we trying to go home, aren't we? Like, that was my, you know, my thing. I mean, you know, just the same way with anything that you do, you know what your objective is, you know what I'm saying? So like, if you know it's, you know, you're trying to go home, you just, you know, move accordingly. Things happen, of course, but you know, you're not looking for it though. You know what I'm saying? And right. and sadly, like, you have some in there that you know, you have people in general, like not even in jail, just, you know, regularly, that just look for certain things. And it's just a thinking, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you know, you get what you ask for sometimes, you know what I'm saying?
There was a song you have on there called I Don't Want to Lock In, where you really go deep into like some of the emotional losses that come with prison, whether it's relationships falling apart, losing contact with loved ones, being treated like less than human.
Hold my head or go the psycho route. But start taking medication, I lose my mind, no doubt. So I just pace and stare in space and hope the time goes now. Up in the cell, it's living hell when the lights go out.
When you're in that kind of situation, what is like the biggest mental adjustment you have to make in order to be able to survive those things?
The first thing that you need to do when you're in that situation is to accept your situation. You know what I'm saying? Most people, that have issues are the ones that's kicking and screaming the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a issue that you think you shouldn't be in jail, then that's one thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you've been falsely accused or something like that, you know what I mean? If you're innocent, you know what I'm saying? If you got, then by all means, you know what I'm saying? Fight to your heart's content as much as you can. I just think, being honest with yourself, if you did the crime, you know what I'm saying? You just do the time. You work on whatever you can work on and you just be better off for it. If that's your issue, then that's your issue. You know what I'm saying? My issue was, look, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? So I had to accept that. And I'm also around dudes in there that's, not accepting their situation, and I'm hearing, every day I got to hear, I got to get out of here, this is crazy, you know what I'm saying, the complaints all day, every day, and I'm looking, I'm like, bro seem miserable. You know what I'm saying? Like, be honest with yourself. Like, if did you do the crime, bro? Like, you know what I mean? If you did the crime, what's the, like, you know what I'm saying? You here now. Like, if you're trying to fight, if it was some type of unjust, if it's something that wasn't right with your case, then that's one thing, But other than that, you in jail. There's nothing you can do. You can't, you know what I mean? You'll drive yourself crazy trying to, get beyond those bars because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think you touched on that too in the song Code Red, where it's just like, when stuff's going down, cops got to come out, and it could be somebody like got into a major fight, somebody got killed, like whatever. It's just like if you had accepted the situation and just kind of like chilled out. Because I found it interesting the line when you're like somebody got their head beat in and you're just like eating food and then going to watch Cheaters. It's just like that becomes the norm. But it's like for that guy, why did you have to do that in the first place?
It does something to you when you see somebody bleeding. You start getting desensitized. Seen the whole thing while I was eating. Then back to business watching Cheaters.
If you're in jail, the reality is you got to get out of jail.
Yeah,
that should be the biggest picture that you have.
And I won't say I did too much to change things, because the main things, making it home to see your baby.
Anything that you're doing that's contrary to that, what are you doing? Why would you make it harder for yourself? Because that's all you're doing. You know what I mean? You're just making it harder on yourself. I know brothers like that got hundreds of years in there. You know what I mean? Shout to brother Jamal. You know what I'm saying? My bro Ace. Shout to him. My other bro Dream, he got a bunch of years, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, as long as you working on, getting out of there, like, you know what I'm saying? If anything, you still gotta, work on something. You can't just sit around, you know what I mean? You still gotta work on getting free.
You also had a song called Get Your Foot Off My Neck, where you talk about like corrupt guards being in there and like, trying to provoke situations that maybe might get prisoners like riled up.
Sit down, you know how to get out. You up in the big house, and it don't help to have a big mouth. Up in the mess hall, CO told him get out. We never seen them again, they cold, knock the kid out.
Did you ever personally witness that or experience that during your time in prison?
Yeah, man. I mean, you have good correction officers that really feel like they're making a difference. Don't get me wrong, right? But then you have some of them that perpetuated the ignorance and the violence in jail. You'd be surprised. Like they're the ones that's actually, just, behind it sometimes.
Then shut the lights off, man, I'm trying to read. And they talk to me like I'm not a human being. Then expect me to be civilized when I'm finally free.
How could you be in a culture where, you look at people like they the scum of the earth, but then when they try to pay for their crimes and do the right thing, you're helping them dig even bigger holes. You know what I'm saying? So it was like it was confusing, like, and then so that makes you just back up from like all of the officers and, that whole faculty. Like, you know what I'm saying? You like, well, I don't, because, you got some of them that's this way and some of them that's that way. So it's like, let me just, stand back. So that's where you get like, that them and us mentality. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, they, I don't know what they want to do, or I don't, so let's stay over here. That's where all of that comes from. But yeah, man, so that's just the reality of being in there,
Obviously there's a lot of moments on the album where you talk about like the realities of things that are going on in prison, but you also have moments of levity that are on the album. You have songs like Commissary and Dancing that are really more lighthearted, as lighthearted as you can get for prison, but in terms of like, you have a connection with the person at the commissary who's nice to you and if you treat.
Commissary lady feeling me, look at these low prices. I can eat for months if I cut out all my vices. Mouthwash is pennies, look at how much rice is. $1.88 or $2 the highest.
With Dancing, you're able to like visit family members that come in and you're able to have like moments of time with them where you can kind of like laugh and hug each other.
9 in the morning, knock, knock, who is it? Get yourself ready, hurry, you gotta visit. Shower, get dressed, tell the officer your digits. Whoever it is, probably ain't seen him in a minute. Going dancing, dancing, dancing. Watch me go down, watch me go down.
Why was it important for you to also include those lighter moments on the album?
Jail makes you realize that life is not always fun and games, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to take time to keep your nose to the grind, tunnel vision. You have to do certain things that you have to sacrifice a lot of pleasure or a lot of comfort. So you being in jail doesn't, it's no exception. You still have to live life in there, you know what I mean? So you got ups and downs in there as well. Like, I would be in there and be like, yo, what would I be doing at home right now? It would probably be even worse, or just, I would probably be bored too out of town. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Or I wouldn't, have anything to do at this point right now. At some point, you got to sit down and work on whatever you're working on. You know what I mean? So like, if you in jail or you in the town, it's the same thing. Jail is you living life in there as well. You know what I'm saying? It's up and down. Good and bad. That's what I wanted to make sure people understood, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though we, dudes was in jail, it was certain times when, you'll feel like you was home. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, damn,
right.
So happy. You might have just had a good visit. You might have just got, some money in you know what I'm saying, in the mail. You know what I mean? You might, you know what I'm saying? You got the game is coming on tonight. You went and bought your favorite snack, and that's all you got to look forward to, and you happy with that. You have these different expectations and different goals, and when you achieve them, those are the things that keep you going in there.
You have a lot of different tracks on this album where you have like different flow patterns and different styles of doing things. But one of my favorite ones is the song 100%. Like, I think that is it's an interesting track because, for one, your vocal registry is like on some kind of falsetto that rivals Pharrell's.
Still I'm kicking and screaming, I want my freedom, and that's a big fact. They said that I'm guilty, but the real thieves had a bit that. Yeah, I know what it says, I've been what you read, but I never did that.
It's like this nervous energy. It's almost like you're playing like a character of a person. So was that like based on anybody you met in prison? And then what made you come up with the idea to do that track in that particular style?
That definitely was what I was doing. It was kind of like a persona, you know what I mean? It was like the energy of that certain person in that certain situation. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm not, innocent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was just doing that because, like, I seen so many times when I was locked up. You know what I mean? I had those experiences with dudes and, people in general that was just like, yo, and like, yo, I'm telling you, in the statute of 3445 says that you're not supposed to, you know what I'm saying, be here. Like, so I'm like, yo, I seen that so many times, and it made me wonder, was like, dudes genuine? Like, are you here like falsely, or are you here wrong? You know what I mean? And for the wrong reasons and stuff like that. So I seen that so much that I just wanted to make a song about it. That's actually a big part of jail, of being in jail. Like 99%, like not 99, but I want to say 70% of people in there is innocent.
DNA a match, and the facts they present got me all up in the mix, but that ain't how it went. I said I'm innocent, 100%. I said I'm innocent, 100%.
You like, y'all, like, we all, like, they made the mistake where everybody's innocent. Like, this is, Like that's just to have me like I was like, wow. Sometimes I think that's how people, certain brothers, kept hope alive, man. Like,
I definitely remember like hearing the song, and then at the end he goes into like the 40 this and blah 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 blah. Give me $2. And like, so was he like really innocent, or was he just trying to get money this whole time? Like,
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of times dudes be running game, like, it was like, you don't know who you dealing with in there sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, you just swear up and down. Brothers is like, sincere, and then you'll run into somebody like, yo, your man is he's just out of it. Like he trusts me. Like, you know what I mean? And so it was like it was great.
I wanted to talk about the song "Out of Touch" because as a person, I have not been to jail. I do not know jail lingo, so going through that whole song was like quite the lesson for me in terms of the vocabulary of that. But what was it like for you, having used this lingo for so long and then getting out and then either trying to use the lingo or having to learn new lingo?
If you're around things, you just pick up on it. You know what I mean? So like that's obviously what I was living at the time. You know what I mean? So I remembered it. I was living it for 13 years. So it was kind of something that was, second nature, fishing line and, the jack, and that's just how we talk.
Walk around with lipstick, yo, that's a queen. When you wearing state greens, there's really no in between. When I say that she banged it on them, they be intrigued. If you ever been to jail, then you know what that means.
You know what I mean? It was just everyday things. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yo, jump in that girl, man. I'm about to go jump in the girl. Oh, word? Well, that meant go get in the shower. That was going to get in the shower. That was just the everyday lingo. So when you come home, you fall into line with what's going on out here. These you run into, and then I work with younger kids in Scan Harbor, in the youth center, a couple of hours out of the day, and I get up with the new slang that they saying now. So you know what I'm saying? Like I just it's just that's just how slang and lingo work.
So now that Off the Count is finally out, I didn't know you've been sitting on it that long, but like now that the album's out, what has the reaction been like from listeners, and like how have you been feeling about the project now that it's out?
Man, I mean, it's weird because I listen to it more now. You know what I mean? Like maybe because it wasn't done and I was working on it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I really didn't like listen to it in its entirety, because I was still like, okay, this song isn't really mixed right, so let me not really listen. You know what I'm saying? So but now that I know everything is done, you know what I mean? I could sit there and really listen to it and kind of, reflect and, just at this point, you can't change anything, but, so I listen to it more now. I love it. I love it because I feel like it reflects, my experience well, you know what I mean? Sometimes you listen to something like, nah, I should have did this or that. You know what I mean? By the grace of the Creator, I sat on it long enough, I think, that I was able to make it to where it was, it was true to life. You know what I'm saying? To what I can remember. You know what I mean?
It was definitely a journey listening to it in terms of, like I said, like really feeling like in the moments where you were, talking about being scared of things or having to like go through various traumas and tribulations, the joyous moments. Like I really felt like as I was listening, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm doing the years with him as I'm listening to this album. And then again, it's just one person's experience, but it's like some people don't get that experience or have an understanding of what it's like to actually be in there and go through all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting to actually go through that and be like, oh, this is what this could potentially be the experience of coming from your perspective.
Right. And I'm glad that a couple of people told me like, yeah, man, I listened to the album. It was really like, I loved it, but it was like, it was kind of sad at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't even know, they just like, it's, it kind of pulls on, those different emotions, man. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. I remember when I first had got it done, I let my bro Sluggo listen to it, and he was like, yo, I ain't never been to jail, but I feel like I've been to jail now. And that's what I was kind of trying to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it to be kind of like a catharsis thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like you listen to it, and if maybe you don't have to experience it now, you know what I'm saying? Because look, you know what I mean? So I know that's a tall order, but that was kind of the effect I was looking for. So but I do get, that from people like, yo, I appreciate you, you know, putting that out there. You know, you informed us of certain things and things like that, you know. So
Nice, nice. What can people expect from you now? Like what products do you have coming up? What performances? Like what's happening? I know you had the Bad Boy, the Biggie anniversary thing happen this past week. But like what do you have coming up next?
well, yeah, man, we got look out for, we got a couple of more videos coming out for off the count. You know what I'm saying? It should be.
Oh, sorry. The video for Bandits was amazing. Like
Oh,
I really getting in there and like seeing the person get maced in the thing. I was like, oh my God, this is like what?
Meanwhile, you're standing by the phone, you trying to get on. Next thing you know, it's lit. You had to get it by the horn. Now they spraying y'all with mace in your face. You crying cold.
that's just how it just goes haywire. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, you'd be like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm talking about right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to kind of express those things in the video, you know, so people could see it. We got the Black and Depper coming out. And that's an album with, you know, Black Robin and myself.
A word? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, man. You know, we had a bunch of you know, Black Rob music that, you know, that we planned on doing, you know, together.
Yeah.
But, you know, since, you know, he's not here, we're gonna just go ahead and put the stuff together and, you know, and put it out.
Count on it, like a table, spread it out. Count on it, but never count us out. Yeah, the B to the LA, C to the K, O to the BB, big city harbor.
Got something with my bro, so be on the lookout for that. Black and Depper, let's go, baby.
I know previous Bad Boy fans will be very excited to hear that because I mean Black Rob on the mic was like
Yeah, it was
fantastic. So yeah, y'all two together, like
yeah, man. You know, that's the bro, man. And you know, shout out to Easy LP. We working on some stuff too, you know. So, you know, we working, man, you know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us. Appreciate you putting out more music. Loved Off the Count, and I'm looking forward to other stuff that you got coming out because just your voice is sorely missed and needed in this world. So I appreciate all you're doing.
Appreciate you, of course, man. Thanks. And thanks to you, Phil, man. I appreciate the time, man. And thanks for, you know, the offer, man. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank G.Dep once again for doing this interview. And for the rest of you all, be sure to check out his brand new album, Off the Count, which is on all streaming platforms. I promise you, it is a work that is worth listening to, and you will not regret it. By the way, I'm looking to interview other independent artists on this channel. So if you have somebody that you think I should listen to and reach out for an interview, you can leave it down in the comments, or you can write to me at aptsongs@hotmail.com. Yes, I still have Hotmail because I'm old. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this episode of APT Songs Interviews. I'm APT Songs, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace.